Welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC. My name is Benny, that is Sal, and today we're going to be talking about, should you trade sit or should you buy the single issues of a comic? I've done a lot of stupid amounts of data that I probably shouldn't have done. No, just in general, it was just too much of my time.
Yeah, at the end of it, I went, wow, what a big fat waste of my time.
It really was. But we'll be talking about that in a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Into the AM. If you want to get yourself an incredibly comfortable shirt with no designs on it, use the code ABSOLUTELY in the link down below. But they also have some unique and fun designs, such as this new one, which I believe, because I just opened it upstairs, is a samurai leaping out of Japan.
That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I ordered a few from them directly. They saw the style I liked and sent more to me, and I like this. So
Nice.
Into the AM. Use the code ABSOLUTELY down below. All right, so here's what happened to get to this discussion, okay?
Yes.
Sal and I decided about 2 weeks ago we wanted to talk about graphic novels versus single issues. Should you trade weight, and should you get single issues? What is better for the industry?
Yeah.
In the middle of that, I was doing research for a topic called manga versus American comic books. Now, this is what people aren't realizing, and I say it in my video, but with the Twitter thread, they think that I was going out of my way to attack people when I'm not. The whole point was actually for this manga versus American comic books thread. The reason is because the ongoing thing that I see comments for on my channel, Sal, whenever I post a video is, comics are dying, manga has finally won.
What does that mean?
Won
what?
Sales, because the information for sales states that they have won. Right, well, that's always been my general reaction.
Right.
But like, manga doing well still brings you into the store to buy that graphic novel, which in every store that I've been to is immediately next to the entire rack of Batman books and the entire rack of Superman books and the entire rack of Spider-Man books. They're all right next to each other. So it's good for the industry if people are just going to the store to buy manga or buy Spider-Man or buy Batman. Okay?
Right. Couldn't care less.
Right. Well, and you could tell how much I actually was tracking what's going on because based on those comments, I'm like, well, let me do the data. Because if manga is officially winning, I think manga versus American comic books, with my rationale as to why I like manga and why I like American comic books, would make for an interesting video.
I think so, yeah.
But that's when I went down the rabbit hole, Sal.
That'll do it.
So the rabbit hole pretty much tells of a different story. So I'm going to make this short because I'm doing a full video on it. And the topic we're here to talk about today is graphic novels versus singles, not discuss the sales data.
No.
2021 was some big numbers. They claimed basically just short of 2.1 billion comic books were sold.
Okay.
$2.1 billion were made in revenue from the comic book industry. Okay. The general argument that I see, this is all from the comments on my stuff and the few things I see on Twitter. For those who don't know, and I've made it very clear and I'm more open about it recently, I actually have never really used my Twitter too much. I always set aside time to use Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook around a time that would work for work purposes. Whenever I start to get into the whole of any kind of social media, I just get mad at all of you. So I just stop using them. I've officially, in the last month and a half now, just completely uninstalled all the apps so that they're only used for work. But before that, I was already steering away from using them because it just makes me angry. I feel like arguing with people who just want to argue. It doesn't matter what it's about. They just want to argue.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started going down this whole graphic novel sales for 2021 was about, this is all generalized numbers for those who are wondering. I'm not going to dig up all my information because there's a whole video I'm doing on that. The generalized numbers will work for this. About 1.4 billion was made in graphic novels, while about 735 million was made in single issues and about 170,000 was made in digital sales. All of this was increases in each of their categories.
Yeah.
Holy crap, on which one?
Digital, how low that is.
Oh, yeah, compared to the singles? Like, you would think at least singles in digital would be closer or more neck and neck. And while I think it went up by like 435,000 from 2020 to 735,000 in 2021.
It's pretty big. It's a big jump. That's a good
That's
jump.
the singles, right. What's it called? The digital went from 150 to 170.
Yeah.
Like, it gained like no ground.
Yeah. I mean, and you can thank your friends at Amazon for that. Really.
You're not wrong. Like, I can't even argue against
doing
that.
Doing a bang-up job getting those books out.
Well, you know what makes me madder about the digital thing is as someone who does download primarily and then collects later.
Yeah.
they haven't fixed it.
No.
It's not like it came out and we had 3 rocky months and now it just works like it used to.
Yep.
They've done minor fixes, like they said they fixed the web reader, but when Dan and I are trying to use it, it still takes about 5 seconds to load every page.
Yep.
I can read faster than it loads half the time.
Yep. I also saw them mention just recently that the guided view is it's coming to beta soon. And I'm like, the thing they invented when Comixology launched, the thing you abandoned when you moved it to Amazon, the thing that already exists that you could just add is in beta?
It doesn't make sense. That's why I've mostly moved to my tablet to read things, because my tablet still reads the digital perfectly fine. I can still scroll through.
Yes. Mobile
I can
is
zoom
always
in.
better.
Mobile still works. You can't read it on your computer anymore.
No, which sucks, because that's where I read it.
So anyway, back to the discussion about the graphic novel sales. Graphic novel sales went up huge amounts, so I started to look into it, because here's where the argument has always come into, that manga has beat out American comic books. And this is where I was in the camp of as well. As someone who reads a lot of manga and a lot of American comic books, I have seen, at least in my own reading habits, to lean closer to manga more recently. Yep. And there's a whole different bunch of reasons for that, and I'll put that into the manga versus American comic books. That's not for this video.
No.
But manga's counted as graphic novels. That's where it's sold. You cannot go to a comic book store and buy an issue of manga.
No.
Chapters of manga, which is what they call them, are still 21 to 25 pages. But I think that the reason they do it this way is because sometimes a manga chapter is 10 pages.
Yeah.
They're not limited to a page count like an American comic book is. So if they're only releasing the chapters in publications like Shonen Jump, they don't have to worry about hitting the page count.
Exactly.
And I think that does help better for the story, but once again, different argument.
Right.
So I started doing the research. And the way that manga, I'm going to jump to the conclusion of this. The way that manga is tracked in America, which is where a lot of the people get confused, is manga is actually tracked by the series, not by the individual volume. So every resource you look up that says things like My Hero Academia has sold 1.8 million copies in the year of 2021.
Right.
Demon Slayer has sold 2.25 million copies in the year of 2021. See, those numbers seemed way too large for me.
Yeah.
But if they were accurate, it makes sense that it was making up the graphic novel stuff. Right. So I started deep diving into that. First, I went to market share. Market share will tell you, market share breaks down to, this is the percentage of the industry revenue that this company took home. Yeah. And Marvel for 2021 took home 31%. DC took home 27%. The two biggest manga producers took home 3.8%. That does not tell me that they overtook the US American market in manga. So that was the first hole in this research where I was like, this video might not be going the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I'm blowing my own argument out the door now. So let's look more into it. I deep dived into so if you use BookScan, which is basically how they tell how many copies of something were sold, you can actually find the real manga numbers. The way manga is tracked in America is through the series. The highest selling manga of 2021 was actually Volume 1 of My Hero Academia at 162,000, which only ranks it as 17 when you compare it to single issues of American comic books.
Right.
So
and that actually makes more sense when you look at it from the scope of individual sales through comic shops.
Right. Exactly. And so that's what it boils down to. The individual volumes collectively have brought up 1.8 million and 2.25 million. And I don't want to discount, that's a hell of an achievement.
That's a great achievement, but it's not the same thing.
No, it isn't. Which is also why, because this is the other holes I started to see in this, if this is the real numbers, 2.25 million, why did people just shut up about that? That went around like Comic Speed and Bleeding Cool, but it never made main headlines in the news. It never made big... It's because I was like, well, what if that's not a big deal? What if in novels... Because I didn't tell you my novel research, Sal, when we were talking yesterday. I was like, what if 2.25 million unit sales...
It's small potatoes.
It's small potatoes when you compare it to a book.
Right.
No. In 2021, and I have the numbers right here because I used them.
Yeah.
In 2021, the highest selling book, which was part 10 of the Dogman series, is 1.2 million.
So there you go.
Right. So I'm like, no,
it is still a very impressive industry.
It is, but I'm like, but you can't if Demon Slayer, one of those volumes sold 2.25 million.
Yeah.
Holy shit, would nobody shut the hell up about this?
It's weird they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they only sold 162,000, makes a little more sense why we didn't hear about it.
Exactly.
So I then started to look at other numbers. And for those who are curious, and I'm going to do more numbers on this because somebody brought up a really good point. I took the last year that Batman was properly ranked. Right. I counted up every Batman book. Batman in 2019.
They switched distributors.
Right, they switched distributors. So 2019, 2020, DC switched distributors. It became a lot harder to track DC stuff. In the 2021 numbers that I gave you, it doesn't actually count DC in the units sold. It only counts their revenue. Right. So it's like you can't even count the units sold over there.
No.
But in 2019, Batman sold 4.1 million units of just comics.
Yeah.
And for the record, that's just comics that say Batman in the title.
Right.
I'm assuming that if DC were truly tracking the amount of Batman sold in a year, they'd probably count a lot of the outliers that none of us count.
No doubt. Right? Like Nightwing or Batman licensed things.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So obviously these numbers are pretty faulty, but then that brings up the question of today's video that I've spent 10 minutes getting to, but I wanted to explain how we got to here before half of you went into the comments and said, no, those numbers are for manga. I found out it's not. I've scrapped the manga versus American comic book video. It's still coming out with that title, but it's got a totally different other premise now.
Yeah.
Because it can't be about how manga beat American comics. It just can't anymore.
Exactly.
But that means that graphic novel sales skyrocketed in American comics, okay?
Which makes sense. I mean, like, when you hear the prevailing conversation about comics and discussions about them, and you see the, like, rise in comic shops and bookstores carrying graphic novels or just trade paperbacks in general, like, you as a consumer can see the microcosm that represents, like, the larger whole, which is that, like, people prefer complete stories. You look at like binge culture and any other method through which people consume entertainment, it makes sense.
Right. Well, this is exactly where I wanted to get to. In a world where so many things are fighting for your attention, I don't know what's the best way to consume your comics anymore. Classic Benny wants to say, go to your local comic book store, buy your issues, get your collectibles, get your variant issues. That's classic Benny.
Oh, totally. Pre-order your books because that's the only way that your book will actually continue to be put out.
But modern day Benny, I don't know if that's the best way to do it anymore because of the nature of the stories. Like,
the cost. Your main argument is usually the cost. Like when you talk about like how much the average cost of a single issue comic book is.
Right, today, the average cost is $4.99.
$4.99.
If $4.99, you're going to get 21 pages. Right. If I go buy a volume of manga, let's use My Hero Academia Volume 1 as our example here. I'm going to get about 100 pages, and it's going to cost me $8.99 at most places. Some will jack the price up, some will give you a discount. But
so
on
if I
average,
spend twice as much as if I spend double the cover price of a single issue, I'm going to get quadruple the pages.
Yep.
And I'm going to increase my entertainment time by, let's say at least 50%.
Well, on top of that, and this is another part of it, is when you buy let's say a graphic novel, let's say it has 4 or 5 issues, generally graphic novels are going to range between $15 to $20. That's your average price without the prestige formats, the hardcovers, the omnibus.
I mean, Marvel will charge you for like a 6 to 8 issue graphic novels anywhere between, it's usually around like $18 to $20 nowadays, which is criminal because Image will put out a book for 10.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, the price of the graphic novels do go all over the place a little bit more. Let me look up Daredevil Volume 1.
Right, which of course is out of print and you can't get it because Marvel also refuses to reprint their trades. But
so right here, Chip Zdarsky Daredevil Volume 1, which contains issues 1 through 5, will cost you at the moment, if you get a paperback, $16.
Right. Outrageous.
So the point I'm making is you're getting 5 issues for $16, or I can go buy these individually, which I believe we're going at $4.99 for 5 issues. Would cost 5 issues would cost about $30 plus tax, plus gas to go to the store, plus all the other expenditures that come along with it.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, certain stories now are not well read as individual issues. Case in point, recently, Venom. We just talked about Venom.
Yeah,
I dropped off trying to read that individually. Until all the issues came out and I could read all the issues, and they were all singles for me.
Yeah,
I couldn't keep up with what the hell was even going on. And I get it. Some people are going to say it's easy to keep track, Benny. What are you talking about? But when you read like 30 comic books a week and it takes a month for the next Venom, a lot of times I don't know what's happening in the next Venom because the last one was so convoluted. And especially Venom that bounced between Dylan, Eddie, and otherworldly time travel Eddie.
Yeah. Right. And that's not to say anything to compare it to like the other myriad stories that are about aliens spacefarers, regular human beings, mutants, marvels, and masterminds, like all that stuff, and all their like insane adventures. Like month to month, I gotta remember the specifics. No, it's way easier and more palatable if I just read their adventures chapter, like genuine chapter, not like month to month, but rather trade paperback to trade paperback. Because at least I'll get a complete story out of it, or at least the makings of one.
Well, and that's one thing I discovered even on the channel, because we've been doing this, what, like 11, 12 years now, Sal?
Yeah. Well,
it's been
10.
10?
I
Okay.
think so. Yeah.
I've been on YouTube since 2012, but I think I only started really hardcore comic story in 2014. So I think I'm like right
Same
at
here. Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
that. But I used to be able to do 1 to 3 issues.
Yep.
Leave them on a cliffhanger, no complaints at all.
Totally.
I noticed over the trend of like 2018 to 2022, that became more and more complaint heavy.
Uh-huh.
My favorite was always, you can't name this a complete story because you didn't complete it. I can name whatever the fuck I want.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Who the hell are you to tell me what I can do with my titles?
Seriously.
I've been naming these complete story since 2014. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're new.
But again, it led to more and more complaints, which also led to lower and lower reviews. Now, that could be a consumer base that is getting less interested. It could be my consumer base is outgrowing my videos. There's a number of reasons why the views are getting lower. We used to average out about 50,000 at our peak. I know people love to see the million-view videos and assume that I used to get those. We never did. Those videos get those million views over the course of like 5 years, people coming back.
Yeah.
But we used to get like 50, 60,000 without even trying. And now we get like 30,000 and I got to try. So
Yeah.
So it could be the audience getting old, could be the algorithm messing me up. I don't know. I've had a great ride, so I'm not complaining about it. But I have noticed that if I just don't do 2 to 3 issues and I lean towards doing 13 issues of Venom, here's 13 issues of Wolverine, here's 13 issues of Spider-Man, people lean to watching those.
Yeah.
More binge culture.
Right.
And I wonder, you brought it up great at the beginning, I wonder if binge culture has had a huge effect on this. People don't want to wait anymore. They don't want to wait month to month to month to find out what's going on with Spider-Man and Ben Reilly. They're just going to come back in a year and buy the book.
Well, especially if they have to like do all the things you described, like go to the comic book store, navigate the comic book store every single day. I think without exaggeration, I can say this. Every single day, I see because I'm subscribed to r/comicbooks on Reddit. Every single day in the new tab, I see a post that says, "I want to get into comics. Where do I start?"
Yeah.
Or I want to get into Spider-Man, where do I start? Or I want to get into Batman, where do I start? And every single day, there is somebody who is just completely lost and needs to figure out how to get it. And I appreciate that because it's like, hey, look, subscribe to youtube.com/comicpop and find out. But but the reality is, like, every day there is the potential for people to go to the comic book store and it's a mess. You know?
Yeah.
To the lay people, to people who don't normally read comic books. And so you got to navigate the culture of comics. You got to deal with like crotchety old business owners. I mean, there's a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to comic books. And so you have all that. And I get to pay $5 to $6 a month to read, what, 8 to 12 minutes worth of entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, I get through most of my comics in 5 to 10 minutes at this point. Like,
oh no, I'm being generous because I really do like blitz through those books, and I try not
especially
to.
more modern day ones where it's more about the art than the actual text. So if you're reading in a hurry for work
me,
purposes,
the modern ones are more about the text and the art. Like there are a lot of books where I'm like, I'll blitz through a book, or I'm halfway through and I'm like, oh my god, like I need to take a minute, and then I look back and see the panels, and it's literally just 2 characters with like a color, and I'm like,
yeah,
man,
yeah, oh, I know, yeah,
yeah, but that's not to discount comics or to give them a hard time, but like, you know, we have to be real and honest about these things if we're going to see change or improvements. And one of those things is graphic novels.
Looking at the sales number data that I did, I mean, singles went up. They didn't go down.
They did go up. So it's like, look, because your option, if you want to get into comics, your options are read them, however you get them, right? And back in the day, I remember being like when I was a little kid, graphic novel trade paperbacks were not like they are today. They were rare and they were expensive. And they only really dedicated the graphic novel or trade paperback format to books they felt were prestigious enough or important enough to be collected.
Yeah.
The rest of them were just Go get them. They're in long boxes across the nation.
Yep.
And it's like nowadays you can just go and every single story has a trade. And that trade, by and large, is at a heavy discount less than a year after it's been released.
Yep.
So,
and it has a lot of extra content in it, like additional covers, all the variants are in there,
sketch,
drawings, sometimes words from the author.
Yep.
And I wonder if this is a sign of the comic book industry. It's doing well, but now adapting to the times late than everyone.
Absolutely.
If we're in a binge culture, if we're in a culture that wants to buy full manga, why aren't we leaning closer to graphic novel? We like to shit on the last 2 years of DC, but the last 2 years of DC has made up like 50 graphic novels because they were all 6-issue stories that were non-consequential to anything.
Completely.
And now there's like, here's a dozen Batman graphic novels that all came out in the last year.
Yep. Yep.
I wonder if a lot of this really is just shifting, and then it's becoming like right now the way manga works is if you're hardcore into manga, you're going to read the chapters.
Right.
You're going to catch them as they drop in Shonen Jump or your website of your choice, which I will not go into. You're going to get those. But a lot of people, more often than not, will wait for the manga to come out in a book.
Yes.
And they will get the book. I did that until I decided to do Mangastorian. Until I decided we're doing Mangastorian again, I was just waiting for the manga to come out in the graphic novel format.
Yeah.
Because why am I going to keep reading weekly and then, like, I'm reading Chainsaw Man, for example, as it comes out every week right now, and that's terrible. One chapter was 10 pages long. They talked for 2 minutes, and he got excited about a penguin. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, why? What a terrible chapter.
Right.
Although that did come back at the ending because he was holding it at the end and he's just walking around like, I got the penguin. I want to take it home. Like
closure.
Yeah.
I just
closure
feel
to the penguin B plot.
Yeah, thank you. But it is, we call it, it's expedient to call it binge culture, but I don't know if, like, we all love binging. I think it's more like, it's just heavier competition that are similar, like more similar than ever. It's like back in the day, and back in the day before even my back in the day, comic books. It was something that was cheap, it was entertaining, and it was geared towards children. And children's options, A, they had little petty cash, and B, they had fewer options, right?
Yeah.
They were either beholden to whatever their parents were going to do with them that day, or their caregivers or whatever, what they could imagine with other children, the toys they had, and the access they had to, like, the outside world.
Well,
now, it's like, I could read a comic book, or I could watch a cartoon that's based off a comic book, or a movie that's based off a comic book. Like, it's not just, there's no other place for you to go in 1950 to get Batman content.
Well,
except
I'm
for,
actually
like, the toy, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you back because that was the next part I wanted to bring up. We've already discussed cost of an individual single is very high. It's becoming more and more of a simply collector's market. And once again, the revenue went up for singles.
Right.
And I mean, from my research, for those who are wondering, unit sales also went up, but it takes a lot more research that a lot of people are willing to do to see that. I will admit that because quick glances, it looked like unit sales were down. They're not when you actually, I sat there and counted up every unit sale of every comic and rounded it off. Trust me, they're up if you count them all.
But only from 2013.
Well, yeah, I went to, leave me alone. I went to 2013 to 2021. They're up.
I think that's enough. Yeah.
That right there took me 90 minutes of just crunching numbers. Leave me alone.
How fun.
It was not fun, but it was weirdly exciting as the pictures started to, like, come together of unit sales and how they were doing. It was like, this is so boring. Why the hell am I doing this? Oh, what is going on here?
Yeah, I'm getting a picture here. Exactly.
So anyway, what I wanted to say is the things that are challenging for the time, though, because if it comes down to $4.99 for a comic in a world where everything is increasing in price, like from your utilities to your mortgages to your everything is going up at this day and age.
Yep.
Which is not good. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm currently on a locked-in mortgage only for 7 years. It was the way we were working things, and I'm really worried that this is not going to resolve in the next 5 years, and I can't refinance at a good rate. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope so.
But anyway, going back to the topic at hand here, I've been arguing this since 2014, 2015, right when Comic Historian started. It was also at the beginning of what was called the Comicsgate movement back in when they were doing their thing, like 2016, 2018.
Yeah.
But I had a meeting with one of them because they wanted to meet up with me at one of the conventions, and they asked me, like, do you think that people are spending less time on comics because of the current direction comics are going in?
Right.
And I told them, no, I disagree wholeheartedly, because I don't think that the issue is that people don't want to buy comics. I think the problem is, and even back then in 2016, 2015, and now it's even worse.
Yeah.
There's too many things fighting for people's time. Back when I was a kid, my dad's concerns were a 9-to-5 job, come home, watch the news, have a quick beer, have dinner, go to bed. That's all he really worried about.
Yep.
But for me, with everything that I have to make things easier, from ordering dinner to just show up at my house, or all of my movies are right at my streaming service. I don't have to go to Blockbuster.
Yeah.
You know, like video games, I just download when I feel like playing them.
Yep.
And on top of that, social media has gone from, oh man, that Facebook thing's kind of weird, to I could watch, like, on average, people watch 44 minutes of YouTube and 45 minutes of TikTok. I saw that in those numbers like a year and a half ago when TikTok officially overtook a daily person's watch time.
Yeah.
So if you add up someone working 9 to 5, they come home with their commute, they're back at 6, they get dinner at 6:30, they then sit down, they watch an hour, 45 minutes of some YouTube videos, they then go watch another 45 minutes of TikToks. It's already 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like at that point,
the days aren't getting longer.
Yeah. We're already looking at 8 o'clock. So at that point is, do I then go spend $15 to get 3 comics that are going to eat up 30 minutes of my time, or do I go spend $15 on 5 issues of Daredevil and at least I get some kind of complete picture of what's happening?
Yeah.
Or do I not buy either? Obviously, with sales going up, they chose to go get the book. But
Yeah.
but it does come down to, do you read all these singles or do you just wait for the books to come out?
Exactly. And I think that there's an argument to be made for both, but I think what needs to be said before we get too far. Well, we can go into the weeds about that, but like I need to mention, just for the sake of the industry, the industry isn't going to change quickly.
Right.
And one of the aspects of the industry that I am sick to death of talking about, explaining, or hearing about from people who don't care about it is the pre-order structure. Because the pre-order structure is such that your comic book stores buy the books. They buy the books and they put them on the rack. As far as they're concerned, as far as the publisher is concerned, the book's sold out. Like if they print a number of books and all the comic book stores order those books, the books are done. They're sold. Marvel and DC made their money. Marvel, DC, boom, everybody. The comic book store now has to sell those books to you.
Yeah.
In order for the comic book store to know how many people want to order that book, and then as such order those books from the publisher, they need to know who's going to order them before they do. Nobody else works like that.
No.
Walmart and Target do not go, well, by the way, I see you're buying a desk lamp. I'm going to need to know in the next couple of years if you're going to be ordering another desk lamp. Because I want to know how many desk lamps I need to have on the shelf for you. Like, that nobody works that way.
The only other industry that I know used to prioritize pre-orders is the gaming industry.
Right.
And that had nothing to do if they're going to make a sequel to a game.
No.
It was just, we want to see how many we're going to sell right away. And that's all that ever was. It never decided if the sequel was coming or not.
No,
you never saw somebody go, Last of Us did super well.
Yeah.
But we didn't get enough pre-orders, so we're not making Last of Us 2.
No, it was essentially lazy market research.
Yeah.
If the pre-orders are high, we know we're going to have a good quarter. Okay. And we'll know it ahead of time. But not pre-ordering. Yelling about how stupid it is. Refusing to do it because you fundamentally disagree with the concept. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Guess what? Your little protest, no one cares. And you could be like, well, then I obstinately don't care about you either. Like, okay, cool. But don't complain when Howard the Duck is canceled.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to get at with a lot of this. While I do think the industry needs to shift heavier and heavier towards the graphic novels, the sales of graphic novels have proven that people are willing to buy graphic novels if we can focus on that.
Yes.
The problem is the industry still relies on the singles.
Right.
It doesn't matter if a volume of... give me an obscure superhero that everyone loves.
An obscure... But Punisher.
It doesn't matter if the first 2 volumes of Punisher sell out and everyone wants it. If what the way the industry works is that team is already left.
Yeah.
Because you have to pre-order these books almost 6 months in advance. The books then come out. If the pre-order numbers state that they want the books then have to sell on top of having good pre-order numbers. That gets it into a trade.
Yeah.
By the time the trade comes out, they've gotten a lot faster with this. It used to be like a year and a half. Now it's like 6 months from release. You'll just see the
5 to
trade
6
drop.
months. Yeah, it's amazing actually, but it's still not fast enough for them
Right.
to have saved the book. However,
Right.
you can still pre-order trades.
Oh, I do that a lot just to show that I want it.
And that is another way to do it. Like if you're like, I trade weight, like I don't have to worry about pre-ordering because I just trade weight. Cool. If you have a local comic book store, pre-order the trades, and at least that's something. And I say this talking to people who work for Marvel and DC. Like I know those people, and they tell me if you pre-order your trades, it's better than nothing. And it's not just but it's not like recycling where it's like, oh, it actually just ends up in a landfill. Like, no, it really will actually affect the sale of the book, because they'll go, well, maybe the book should be digital exclusive. Maybe it should only go to graphic novel. Maybe we should like double ship or make it monthly instead of bi-monthly. Like they can make arrangements based on the sales data of trades versus monthlies. But what's funny about the data that Benny pulled up is monthlies are going up. So like those who are saying, you know, like obviously trades are better than monthlies because the trade market is so high, actually comics are doing well overall. And it's really about preference. But if you love Nova, you know, or Speedball or, you know, Red Hood, you're going to need to pre-order those books, or at the very least tell the comics in some way, don't cancel it. And the only letter they give a crap about is the C note.
Yeah.
Like they want money. You can't like all those letter writing campaigns you hear about, you know, like, oh, we got so many letters and envelopes and, you know, postcards that said we love Spider-Girl. Like you better buy that book.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're
I
never
mean, why do
gonna
you
bring
think
it back.
Spider-Gwen would be an easy book to sell, yet it keeps getting started and canceled over and over and over.
Right, because people you know why? Because people Twitter about it. They post on Twitter and they're like, Spider-Gwen's gonna get canceled. We gotta get together. And then some poor hapless intern at Marvel goes, my phone, it says that 10,000 people want to read Spider-Gwen. Oh yeah, well 4,000 people freaking bought it last month. Well, it says 10,000 people want to read it. I guess we'll bring it back. Okay, pre-orders 2,000.
Yep. That's the issue.
By the way, I'm making up the numbers off the top of my head. I don't know if those are real numbers.
And this is going to be our absolute comics of the week. And here's the problem. They look at those. They follow what you guys are doing on Twitter. They follow what's going on the news articles.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't believe that companies do, look what happened to Morbius. They got gaslit into bringing Morbius back into the theaters to fail a second time.
Yeah. You wouldn't see a comic book company do that.
You would think not, but
that's how bad Sony is. But like a comic book company would go, well, the data says that they're not going to do that. Like, I don't care what the Twitter says. We saw the ticket sales.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how it works with the comic books. But like the amount of people that want a certain thing to come back but actually won't buy the comic is ridiculous. Yeah. They have no problems anonymously tweeting about things, but they don't go out and actually buy the comic. But it looks like they're buying the graphic novel, which is what we're getting at here, because the graphic novel sales are way up. So your Joe Schmo casual reader doesn't want to go into their local comic book store. And I've been at both sides of this, amazing stores with amazing owners, with amazing organization. And I have been to ones that literally look like it's somebody's attic.
Right.
There's dust everywhere. They don't know how to clean. The owner won't even look at you when you walk in the door.
Yep. Oh, so, and the prices reflect their like antiquated sense of reality. Where like, hey, I've got this Wizard magazine from 1994. How much? Well, what's the cover price say? The cover price says this is a magazine from 30 years ago, and you should give it to me for $1. That's what the cover says. But no.
But like that's why I think graphic novel sales have gone up, because people are interested. They want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But like finding a local, more people than not like to comment that there is no local comic book store next to them. And I find it weird when people get mad because I make comments like support your local comic book store, and then I'll get a response of my nearest one's 3 hours away. What do you want me to do, Penny? Go on Amazon. I don't care. I'm just saying, go to if you got one, go support it. Like
it's like saying, like it's like talking to a subset of population. Like, listen, if you want to fly higher, you have to groom your wings. I don't have wings. Well, I'm not talking to you. Am I? You know what I mean? Like, look, if you have a local comic book store and you like it, like, I've heard the exact same argument where it's like, yeah, well, my local comic book store is run by a jerk and I hate it. Well, then don't support your local comic book store. The next local comic book store.
I won't lie. Though, I did support my comic book store until the owner passed away. I tried a new comic book store because I wasn't a fan of the other people. And the new people in the new comic book store, the moment I walked in, decided to inform me that DC is going out of business and they're going to stop making comic books and I should stop collecting. Right. So I didn't go back. Like,
yeah, no. Like, what are you doing?
You know what? You're right. Let me just have these books I wanted to buy, and I'll never see you again.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, good point. Okay, I'll just cut my pre-orders in half, and because that's good for you too. That's good business sense.
Why are you? I'm here buying DC books. What the fuck are you talking about?
I own a grocery store, but don't buy the bananas. They're phallic and they scare me, and I don't believe in them. Okay, I won't.
Yeah, strange business models what our Twitch chat's saying. I agree. That's why I didn't go back.
Yeah,
we went there like 2004 about Pokemon cards, and I saw they had a comic book section tucked away in the back behind all the anime statues. I only found it because I was looking at the anime statues.
They know what side their bread is buttered on. But yes, I mean, the fact is, like, the comic book industry, you know, needs to change or die, and it is, and I think it is slowly. And I think the look. Graphic novels and monthly sales going up is a good sign. Graphic novels themselves, like,
but the point I'm making here is, I just because sales are up, Sal, the comic book industry still needs our help.
100%.
We need to. If you are going to trade weight, then go buy the trades.
Right.
And if you are up for going to your local comic book store, go pre-order is what we're basically saying. And because the comic book industry is an old model, and the plan of just not doing either isn't going to force them to change. That's how we actually see comic books begin to die.
Yeah, yeah. So, by the way, pre-ordering is easy enough. You just call your local comic book store and you go, I love Nightwing. As long as Tom Taylor's on Nightwing, put it in my bag.
Right. Most comic stores don't even need you to
like fill anything out.
They don't need to fill it. You don't have to pay up front.
No.
Now, make sure you go buy the books, because otherwise I've seen this where people have years of back. I don't know why these stores keep putting books away if someone hasn't even checked in a year.
Yeah.
But they put away the books for a year, basically, and it gets really bad. But
no, and what happens is they'll have a stack of books. They have like a bill for $600, and they'll go, and they will be ghosted.
Yeah.
Like the purchaser will just go like, well, I'll just never come back there again.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you tell the comic book store, I want to pre-order the book, I want to buy that in the future, you better buy it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a crappy model. I mean, I agree. It's a crappy model. Because what if next month I'm short? What if next month I don't have the desire? What if I, like, burn out of comic books? What if I'm saving up for something? Well, that's part of being a responsible adult, is, like, making those kinds of decisions. And if you purport to love comics and love this book in particular and complain endlessly when those creative teams get kicked off the book or the book gets canceled, you gotta jump through hoops to make it happen. You know, it's just like any other thing in the world that you love or care about. You have to work to keep it alive.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, what we're not saying is there's no preference in graphic novel or floppies, but if whatever side you go to, you need to support that form of marketing so that it can grow.
Yeah. But what do you prefer? Like, the thing is, for me...
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go. Sorry, you go first.
All right. Well, because it's an exception. Like, I buy digitally month to month, unless the book is really exciting, and then I will pre-order the book from my local comic book store, like Human Target. I'm like, when I read the first issue, and that's a very beautifully bound book, and I really like that book. I put it on my pull list, and I said Human Target, and I knew also it was 12 issues, so I was like, oh, that's an easy commitment.
Yep.
There's other books that are like hard to find, or books that you know will be an issue getting in the future, like The Nice House on the Lake or Something's Killing the Children. I'm like, put that on my pull list because I want to make sure I get those books, and I don't want to walk in the store and find it gone before I get there. So that's great. But again, that's independent comic books. When it comes to Marvel and DC, for the most part, digitally, unless I love the book so much or I really want to commemorate that particular issue, I grab like it's in the collector's market, where I grab a single issue of that. But for the most part, it's trades because I cover them on my show and I talk about them. So like, I'll buy them, in abundance. And there's any millions of ways of buying those trades, by the way. Like, you can get them at your comic book store. You can get them at in-stock trades. And by the way, your comic book store will get the trades before Amazon. So if you order like the latest issue or the latest volume of the Aaron Punisher run, if you go to your comic book store, they'll have it first.
Yep.
So, but trades,
I think for me, if I didn't do this for a job, it'd be almost exclusively trades. Mm-hmm. There's very few comics and chapters of manga that I get excited for. Yeah. Like, oh, I got to read this the week it came out. Most of them, I would prefer to sit down with a nice fat stack of them. Like even the Venom thing, I read all of that 1 through 13. That made sense. Yeah. Daredevil, I read all 1 through 6 of the current run, and I'm like, now I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
So I obviously have to read the digital stuff to make it, for the job. But I think I would do a lot more trade waiting and read very few weekly releases unless we were doing this for a job.
Totally.
But anyway, that's the end of today's episode. Just our opinions on graphic novels versus trades. Graphic novels versus singles.
I was going to say, did we actually reach a conclusion? Or
it lean towards whichever side of the market you're doing best with.
Yeah.
And you want to lean to, but if you're going to be a trade sitter, then you need to pre-order. You need to get in the store and buy them. If the preference, obviously, is still pre-order a comic at your local comic book store, go get the floppy, pick it up that way. That'll keep the industry going. But if everyone is pre-ordering and buying the trades, that will at least start steering the discussion that way.
Right. The thing is, like, I like to think that if we do, it's easy to say that a system's broken or it's not working or this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, have you actually exhausted the options available already? And it's like, I think that's... Let's go down the path that is laid before us before we suddenly decide that we have a better idea. Unless you have a better idea, in which case submit that idea. But I think that the problem is the big two in particular. They're not listening unless you pay.
Because at the end of the day, they don't care about the comic sales. I think that's a problem. The people that care about the comic sales are the people in the comic publishing house. But overall, WB just looks at comic books as an idea farm to make into shows or make into movies or make into merchandising. Yeah. And Marvel looks at it the same way.
Oh, yeah. No, they just keep those. The fact is, those companies, like the parent companies of Marvel and DC Comics still turn a profit. And as long as they do, it doesn't cost much to keep operations going.
No. So sadly, because they underpay everyone. That's a totally different discussion.
But at least it does, we've talked about this before, and this is just a quick thing, and it probably isn't a conversation, but I kind of like that the comic book industry is not the biggest thing in the world, because it kind of protects it. It's like Daredevil, the Zdarsky series. It's not selling 160,000 copies a month, which means Marvel Editorial isn't interested in the book. Yeah. And Zdarsky can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
The comic book industry doesn't make billions of dollars. Look at Wizards of the Coast. Some shareholders meeting recently was like, you realize that Wizards makes exactly as much as Hasbro, right? Like, you have 2 Hasbros, essentially. And that means that Wizards needs to be making a profit like Hasbro needs to be making a profit. Like, it's now on my radar.
Yeah.
And look at how that turned out.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the comic book industry needs to fix itself and self-regulate and figure, but I'm happy with the numbers we're pulling here. Let's not get the attention of the people upstairs lest they think they can fix it. That's all I'm saying. I'm cautioning against too much success.
Imagine the day that Disney's like, you know what? Let's fix Marvel Comics.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if the next guy after the last guy comes in and goes, I actually have a lot of experience in magazine publishing. I think I could really turn Marvel Comics around. Get out of here!
What if we put Marvel Comics books alongside People magazine?
I mean, I don't know if that would work. But yeah, woof.
Anyway, that's the end of today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope let us know your opinions down below. I do think we came to a kind of a conclusion, but we also kind of beat around the bush on a conclusion because at the end of the day, it really is a preference as long as you're supporting that side of the industry.
Yeah.
So But yeah, graphic novels versus individuals, and I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time right here. Check out sponsor Into the AM. Use the code Absolutely.